All right, so welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. I'm joined by Erik from Thunderbird Divine. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good
Um,
to be here.
yeah, it was interesting because I hadn't been so aware of the music until I started listening to it today. And
Hmm.
to give the audience a little bit of context, um, Thunderbird Divine from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Correct.
Music in the spirit of artists like Monster Magnet, Hawkwind, Flower Traveling Band, the MC5, Grand Funk Railroad, and many others. I got that from your Bandcamp page. I thought that sort of sets a nice tone for people if they're interested.
I hope so. I mean, I think there's still people who like that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I just mean if I personally find it difficult sometimes to categorize bands because so many bands you could put in one or two or three or four genres. But once you hear, oh, if you're into Monster Magnet, you'll
Right.
dig Thunderbird Divine. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I'll take that comparison all day. Monster Magnet's awesome, so I'm more than happy to take a Monster Magnet. Any of those bands that are mentioned in our bio, if they said like, "Oh, you guys really remind me of them," I would be like, "Well, thank you," because all there's a reason why they're all our
right.
influences, right?
Well, it's interesting. Like that's when I was listening to it, the impression I got was certainly that you belong in that group.
Hmm.
Uh, you have a unique. The sound is yours.
Thank
I
you.
wouldn't say you sound like any of these bands, but the
Right.
impression is certainly there.
Well, yeah, that's definitely another important element to us. It's in this genre of the stoner doom thing. Um, there's a lot of samey type of bands, and a lot of them are great, like really great. But uh, that's just not my background. That's not our background as a band. And so I'm really proud to be like, like, hey, you can't put your finger on it
Right.
exactly. I I think that's a very good thing for us, um, because there's a lot of bands who are like, oh, we like Black Sabbath. Ooh, look, guess what they sound like? Black
Right.
Sabbath.
Well, what's great when I did a bit of a dive through your catalog,
Mm,
I really appreciated the fact that the first two songs I listened to were a cover of Barry White and the Osmonds.
yeah.
Yeah, you have "I'm Gonna Love You a Little More, Babe" by Barry White and "Crazy Horses" by the Osmonds,
Yep.
which you don't. I don't think in the stoner doom cat. You don't really find so many bands willing to cover songs like that. If it's not something that's they're familiar with. So I really like as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Whoa, these guys are." They just jumped up like
Yeah.
because they're willing to branch out like that.
And then that's an important thing for us as well. I would say, um, we don't want to be limited by the name of a genre, right? So it's like listen to the original of Crazy Horses, like the original version. First of all, it's mind blowing that the Osmonds put out a killer.
Sorry,
No, no
um,
worries.
I'm gonna put it on Do Not Disturb.
Okay.
It's one. I apologize. One thing that will happen every so often is I'll forget to put it on Do Not Disturb, and one of my parents will call.
Oh yeah,
So,
sure.
so that was my father just calling. But
Oh
anyway, you were
yeah,
saying about the Osmonds and
yeah.
Crazy Horse.
So I mean, if you go back and listen to that album, it's from 1972, and yeah, there's some like most people know the Osmonds as cutie, like Donnie was so adorable and whatever. Meanwhile, they put out some really good records, and the one they put out in '72, Crazy Horses, has a couple of serious bangers on them. And so we went on a little bit of a deep dive listening to the Osmonds, and like "Hold Her Tight" is another banger. It sounds like a Kiss song with like a Led Zeppelin backbeat. And "Crazy Horses" is a fucking rocker. That is a
Yeah,
banger song. And I played it for my bandmates, and they were like, "This isn't the Osmonds." I'm like, "It's the Osmonds." And like, we got really into it. Like, we went and listened to, actually, I don't have it in the room here with me, but our bass player, after we recorded that cover, he actually found an original print of Crazy Horses on vinyl. He bought it for me. He was like, tribute, you know. It's a great record. It's a great song, and it's really fun to play. And I don't want to be limited, like, oh, it's the Osmonds, so that's not like stoner enough. Man, whatever. It's a fucking cool song. We wanted to rock it, so we rocked it. And then the Barry White song, that beat is killer. That groove is sick. And the song is really exceptionally well written. Barry White was an amazing songwriter and obviously an amazing singer. I mean, he got to be a little bit of a joke over the years because, you know, he was a big heavy set dude singing about like getting all the ladies. But I mean, he did get a lot of ladies. And also he was very, very good at playing piano and arranging songs with a whole orchestra in that R&B funk genre. And I remember playing that for my bandmates. I was like, listen to this groove. And our drummer, Mike, was immediately like, oh, yeah, I got to learn that. And when we decided to cover it, it's not like learning how to play a Black Sabbath song. It's harder in some ways because it's mostly just groove, you know?
Well, I really appreciated the fact that you hadn't closed yourselves off.
Yes.
You know, a lot of bands are so serious and they think, well, we need to play Just Sleep and Black Sabbath. And, you know, I really respect the fact that you were like, you know what, this Osmonds album is a banger and we're going to cover this song.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big thing for us was like, if you listen to our first record, Magnasonic, which we put out on Salt of the Earth Records in I want to say it was 2019. I'm bad with the dates.
Yeah, no, it is. I was going to actually get to that.
Okay. Then go ahead. I was just going to say is like when we put out that record, one of the things we were intent upon is like, we're going to make an interesting record. We're not going to make a straightforward rocker record. We're going to take some turns and twists and do some different things. Because that way, whatever we do next is on brand, right? So it's like if you make the first record you make is so crushingly fucking heavy, anything that you make after that isn't more crushingly heavy than that one, those guys, they screwed up, you know.
What was interesting is as I went backwards, it was Barry White and then the Osmonds, and then you have an EP called The Hand of Man.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And The Hand of Man, someone had written on Bandcamp, opens with a slight jab of Blue Oyster cultish fuzz, leading into a stranglehold of tribal space rock, pulling an expansive aura and gripping with cerebral rhythm. It's over quite fast, but it creates an intense rush.
Well, so whoever said that is fucking smart.
Every time I find something that I feel really encapsulates something, then I'll mention it on the show. And I read that and I was like, wow, okay, that's really insightful.
Yeah, quite. Whoever said that is really on point.
I want to say his screen name handle is Bucky.
Oh, I forget his last name, but he's like a huge Bandcamp aficionado, especially in the genre. And he's always like got a great handle on he's got a great sense of describing. He's got a great skill in describing what he's hearing, what's on the recording for sure.
Well, yeah. So I thought that was a really great way to introduce to people what Hand of Man was about. And then you cover the Yardbirds.
Yes.
Happenings 10 years time ago.
Yeah.
Which I thought, okay, if you were to ask me what sort of songs a band like yours would be covering, I was like, okay, the Yardbirds, more so than the Osmonds or Barry White.
Oh, definitely.
And then Magnasonic, your first EP, which and this was just an eye with a pyramid handle, so I don't know who that. It says, imagine, if you will, the fuzz of Fu Manchu, the candor of Clutch, and the muscle of Monster Magnet, cohesively coherent and thoroughly thick.
That's very, very, those are some big names to drop in our description. And of course, I'm flattered to be in the same sentence. If someone used those words, those bands to give people a handle on what we do, then
Yeah, so if you're out there and you're unfamiliar with Thunderbird Divine and anything we've talked about tickles your fancy, then you should definitely check them out. They've got Bandcamp, the music's streaming. Um, are you going to be playing any shows anytime soon?
yeah, we have a couple of things coming up. Like right in the beginning of June, we're very happy to be helping our friends in the band High Leaf celebrate their their debut of their first record. So it's a record release show we're going to be doing here in Philly. Then we have later in June, we're doing a couple of shows we're going to be playing out in Western PA, and then we're doing the Maryland Doom Fest. And we have a couple other things we're going to be doing this summer before the end. And also, this is the fun part about being in a band with like very little to no backing, is we're trying to like play these shows while finishing up the writing and starting to record the next record.
Gotcha.
So we're trying to do all of these things concurrently.
Right. That was my next question was going to be, what are you working on something new?
Yes. Yeah. We're going to have about 8 songs on the next record.
Okay.
They're all basically written. We just have to get good enough at playing them to record them.
Right.
So that's the current challenge that we're dealing with right now, is getting those songs in a like we have demos of all of them.
Right.
But a demo versus being able to play the song well enough to record. I think this might be where we're a little different from some other bands in the genre, or in any genre, really. We love it. We love the music. We love the writing. We love the recording. We love the performing. But everything has to make sense.
Right.
Everything has to be thought out. I mean, yeah, there are happy accidents that can happen while you're recording, but I don't like unpredictable shit in the recording studio.
Sure.
Recording time costs money, and it's not cheap. It's not like, oh, well, if we can't get it done today, we'll just buy another day. Like another day is going to cost you $600 or so. Right. So we come in with a clipboard, which is our ongoing giggle.
Yeah, I remember reading about the band Minutemen.
Yeah.
Band, and how they had a really practical method of record. They would get studio time at like 4 a.m. when it was really inexpensive, and they there were just a lot of different tricks. They would rehearse the songs as they would be recorded on the album. All of these things so that they wasted no time.
Well, yeah. I mean, now granted, their aesthetic was a lot different than ours.
Sure.
They would have 8 songs in the time it to do one of ours.
Right.
Because they weren't called the Minutemen because they were bad in bed. Like
no.
They were called the Minutemen because their songs were about a minute each.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Mike Watt I love that guy. I've spoken to him in the past. He's a great guy, and he really loves and knows music. And
sure.
But their whole thing is very much in the moment.
Right. I just meant that the practical elements of how they recorded sound, not wanting to waste time.
Oh yeah.
And just making sure that resonated. But yeah, it's very, very different music.
Oh yeah. I mean, not that I don't, I mean,
no, of course.
But I mean, yeah, I was a fan of Minutemen and Firehose.
Sure.
Really good stuff. But that mindset of like being very, very well rehearsed before you go in the studio, 100%. That's what we're doing. Absolutely. Sure. You have to be not over rehearsed, but you have to just be like, you have to be able to say like, okay, after the second verse, before the bridge comes in, there's a moment about 2 bars in, and I want to do this. If you can't tell your engineer that, you're wasting time, because the engineer's like this, and no one wants to waste that kind of time when the engineer doesn't know what you're talking about, and you don't know what you're talking. Like, oh, I want to add something else here, but you don't know what it is.
Sure.
And then you're off on a quest to figure out what the fuck it is you're adding there.
Right.
And if you don't know what it is before you put it down, That's wasting. That's just a waste of time. I mean, like I said, happy accidents can happen in the studio, but the more you know before you come in, the better prepared you are, and the better your result's going to be. You know, that's just all there is to it. So
Well,
their aesthetic is absolutely on point as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Well, okay, and feel free to say I'd rather not answer this question right now,
Sure.
but are there going to be surprises on the new record like the Osmonds or Barry White?
Well, probably not covers.
Oh, not covers, but perhaps something
Oh yeah, yeah.
just is okay.
So I actually, believe it or not, I prepped for this interview.
Oh, okay.
Some things that I mean, that you just generally don't hear on stoner rock records, right? You know what this is?
Is that a didgeridoo?
It is.
Okay.
So this guy will be.
Yeah,
Back.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I couldn't. I mean, maybe Sun Ra's Orchestra
Mm-hmm.
is the like that's the only thing I could think of where they might even consider. But on a stoner rock record, never.
Yeah, so this guy will be on there. So I have him hanging out. I learned how to play it. I just learned. It's still quite an experimental phase.
Sure.
And then over here behind me, got Peepaw's old banjo.
Nice. Yeah.
There's going to be some banjo on there.
Okay.
There's going to be, you know what a hurdy-gurdy is?
Just in the Donovan song.
Yeah, so it's like a hand crank single string instrument that does like a drone, and then you kind of play off the drone. It's a very old instrument.
Sure.
We have one of those. That's probably going to get on there. Mandolin, flute, various drone machines.
Okay.
We have a keyboard player, obviously, and yeah. I mean, like basically, we're gonna try and put sounds on there and see what they sound like, and if they suck, we'll take them off. Well, rather, if we think they suck, we'll take them off.
Yeah.
And if we think they're good, we'll leave them in there, and that's But yeah, so I don't know if it's so much a surprise as it is.
Well, again, I have to commend you as a band for taking chances like this. I think a lot of people would be turned off from even trying it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's very impressive, and I really like the fact that you're like, you know what? Let's try a didgeridoo on this, and if it works, great, and if it doesn't, we'll take it off, and but it's worth the opportunity to see what it's all about.
Right. Like, well, what does it hurt? Like Hand of Man and Magnasonic both have electric sitar on them.
Okay.
And since that was me borrowing a friend's electric sitar, and I just bought my own because I'm like, it's not the last time we're going to put a fucking sitar on something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like our sitar is on our version of the Barry White song.
Sure.
And I couldn't, now that we've recorded it that way, I can't imagine it without that little Biggie Smalls hook that I put on there, Like, to me, it's like, that makes the song. It gave it that extra little thing, electric sitar, banjo, hurdy-gurdy, didgeridoo, drone machines. Mellotron. You know what Mellotron is?
Isn't that it's like an organ?
Well, it used to be like a parlor trick. It was like a big joke. You'd have like this keyboard thing in your living room back in the day, and everyone could play a little piano back in the day, right? And you would play it, but it had tape loops in there of various things like violins, cellos, horns, flutes, etc. You hear it a lot on old Beatles records. Like if you listen to I Am the Walrus with all those string parts, not all of them are actual strings. Some of them are done on this Mellotron, so it plays tape loops and you could play them in key. And it's a really cool thing. Now we have we have whatever you call it, digital simulations of a Mellotron, because a real Mellotron is incredibly impractical to use in modern day recording. But we're going to get some Mellotron in there. There's Mellotron all over Magnasonic.
Gotcha.
There's and then of course all the different keyboards, right? Like Hammond B3, Wurlitzer, Farfisa. We get all those guys in there. Harpsichord if we can find one. But yeah, we're not afraid of that shit.
No. Well, I'm excited to hear the new music.
Thank you.
Just part of me is curious to know how you'll work in a didgeridoo.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, well, the previous music has been awesome, so this is probably just going to be a continuation of the foundation you're building on. So
yes. Well,
I'm excited to see where it goes.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hopefully other folks are going to, hopefully other folks have the same anticipation and excitement about what we're going to do next. Like, to me, it's, like I said, when we did the first record, we were like, okay, we're just going to make the record we want to make that sounds right to us, knowing the whole time while we were making it that it didn't sound like a typical stoner rock record, right?
Sure.
It just doesn't. And part of it's because, honestly, that's who we are. And part of it was like, we didn't want to make a boring record, right? We didn't want to make, like, without saying names, because that's not cool, and I'm not a name dropper, we could have recorded this record with a guy who's known in, like, the stoner rock community as, like, a guy you can go to for recordings and you'll get a stoner rock record, like a very good stoner rock record. And I put it out there to the guys. I'm like, we could make the record with this guy and we'll probably get a slamming ass stoner rock record. Or we could make this record with this other guy who was a friend of mine who passed a couple years back, like after we made the record, obviously. But he's more of an indie rock guy, like experimental indie rock type of person. And I said we could make it with the stoner rock guy, or we could make it with this indie rock friend of mine. And I'm not trying to, I'll go with whatever the whole band wants to do. And they all agreed, like, let's go with the indie rock guy. And I think it was the right choice, even though it was a much harder record to make that way. We were very well rehearsed, but he was a challenging person, but he had an amazing ear. And so he encouraged me. I'd be like, I think I hear a piano on this part. Be like, and he wasn't like, what, piano? He was like, oh, really, piano? Like, what's it doing? You know what I mean? Like, what's the part you hear for it? And then we'd go over to the piano and pick it out, things like, oh, that amp we have this little battery operated amp that we're using to record with because it sounded weird. And the battery started dying. And it was like going, like, when you would stop playing, it would go like all these like weird noises. And the two of us looked at each other and were like, obviously we're keeping those weird noises in there, right? Like, we're not cutting those out. And so, like, the whole thing, his aesthetic freed that part of me that wanted to experiment. And then the other guys got involved in it. Like, let's turn some drums upside down and hit the backside of them with a stick,
Right. Well, that's how you break new ground. That's
right.
How you move the art forward, by not simply retreading the old stuff, but by taking chances. So I'm glad that you're going to continue to do that with this new album.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I don't think I'm ever going to get bored of trying new things, trying new flavors. And that's not just in terms of layering either, like layering in, oh, like, wouldn't it be funny? He, we're going to put a theremin on this. I play theremin on stage live. Like, it's not a surprise to put that on a record. But, like, it's not like aren't we clever? It's like, it's fun and it's funny, So when you like start trying like dumb, weird, different things, some of it's gonna be like, oh no, that's not working. Like, it's not adding anything to the track, And then other stuff, you'll just be like I said, the amp shitting out where the battery was dying and it was making weird. It wasn't making feedback. It sounded like it was like on fire. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's how you advance the genre. That's how you do new things, and being open to that, which is great to hear. And there are a ton of people like me who appreciate that. So you're going to get people who are excited about this record.
Well, that's cool. I appreciate that a lot. Like, music industry is a funny thing, man.
It is, it is, but it's there. There's I would suggest right now, um, after you finish watching this, go check out Thunderbird Divine's Bandcamp page. Listen to their cover of Barry White, the Osmonds. Pick up both of their EPs. Listen to everything. Anticipate the new album when it comes out.
Should be this fall.
I certainly am, and I wish you luck playing the Maryland Doomfest and all the other shows you have.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
You got it. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.